Tottenham are in a bit of a tricky situation at the minute. They're slightly underperforming in the league. They've had managerial changes and it's not too clear who's going to be coming in as a new manager. And on top of that, they've got key players like Hugo Lloris, the captain, who's getting old and needs replacing. But obviously the big one is Harry Kane, one of the greatest Tottenham players ever. His contract is going to be running out fairly soon and it looks like Tottenham might have to sell him this summer or risk possibly not getting a fee for him at all. So today we thought we'd take it upon ourselves to rebuild Tottenham in FM23 over the space of one season in a world where Harry Kane leaves. But before we get on to all of that, I'm just going to ask you guys, if you do enjoy the video, smash the like button for us to let us know you're enjoying it and comment down below which rebuild you'd like to see next. Based on the reception of the first two that we've done, we're not too sure whether we're going to keep going with the series, but if you do want to see it, make sure you let us know by smashing that like button and getting involved in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get this rebuild started. So the first thing to note is obviously we're in 2022 here. Tottenham have already played this season in real life, or at least have nearly finished it, and they're currently sitting around that 6th, 7th spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to forward ahead a year in this Football Manager world just to get up to that time frame. And you can see we've actually had a fairly accurate representation of where Tottenham are in real life, around that 7th place spot. We finished on 67 points, not the worst season in the world, but we'd like to be doing better and competing in them Champions League areas. We also were runners-up in the Carabao Cup, so still no trophy for Tottenham, but at least we were slightly closer. But there's a few key areas at Tottenham that we're going to have to improve in our one season rebuild. The first one is, of course, the goalkeeping situation. Neither of these goalkeepers are players Tottenham can rely on any longer. I mean, Hugo Lloris has been their goalkeeper for years. He's had a few mistakes in him and it looks like his time is going to be up at the club and they're going to need a new goalkeeper. So that's one area we'll be looking to improve. Fullback's an interesting one. They've got Pedro Porro on one side and Udogie to come back from his loan at Udinese for next year. Outside of that, there's a fair bit of depth and it doesn't seem to be the immediate problem that Spurs need to fix. Centre-back, however, for me, is certainly an area that we're going to try and recruit in. Romero was good, particularly in a back three. In a back two, it hasn't looked great so far, but he clearly needs a solid defensive partner to go alongside him, and I think it's unlikely that that player is going to be Eric Dyer or Davinson Sanchez. We want to make an Alderweireld Vertonghen level pairing in this Spurs defence. Midfield does have some good players in it, Højbjerg, Basuma, Bentancur. Obviously none of them are really world-class level players, but I do think that midfield, compared to other positions, might be okay. I think what we need to do though is add one creative midfielder, a Christian Eriksen type, into that midfield position, and that's something we'll be looking to recruit. But of course, the big problem that we mentioned earlier that Tottenham are going to need to try and resolve in some situation is Harry Kane potentially leaving. He'll have a year left on his deal at the end of a current season being played in real life, and Tottenham could either get another year out of him and lose him on a free, maybe he signs a new deal but it seems unlikely, or they could look to cash in, and that's the world we're going to imagine here. Tottenham selling Harry Kane this summer, potentially to a rival club, taking the cash and trying to reinvest it. And obviously that does mean we'll have to replace Kane, but now I'm going to get on with the transfers and let you know who we've bought in and who we've sold to try and resolve this situation and then see where this club can go. Before I show you our completed transfers, just to let you know, this is a one season rebuild, but if you'd want to see a longer form 5 season rebuild in the space of one video, you can check out my channel linked on the description, where we've rebuilt clubs like Chelsea, Valencia, Benfica, amongst many others, and Tottenham might be on the list soon, so feel free to come check that out. I'd really appreciate any support over on my channel, but let's focus on what we've done with these Tottenham transfers. We started off by trying to clear out some of the deadwood in Spurs' team. It wasn't very easy. Ben Davies, I'm not saying is a deadwood player, but we tried to sell on the likes of Ndombele, very talented but hasn't worked since Spurs, but we couldn't get rid of him. But one player we were able to move on was Ben Davies, who's gone to Wolves in the Premier League. He's put in a good shift for a long while, but with a few different left-back options now, with Udogie coming back, it was time to move Ben Davies on. I'm also looking to play 4 at the back, not 5, and that limits Ben Davies' uses for us, so we've decided to let him go. We got a decent fee of 12 mil for him. It looks like Emerson Royal is flirting with a move away in real life. Tottenham have Porro and Spence, who's likely to play a bit more of a part next season, so I thought, you know what, we'll take in some cash for Emerson. It wasn't the craziest fee in the world when Spurs signed him from Barcelona, but in real life it does look like he's wanting a move. We decided to get rid of him here and we sold him to Fulham. Now, all of these transfers I'm going to say are realistic transfers, but obviously everything could happen in real life. No one knows what's going to happen in football, and for all we know, Emerson Royal Villarreal suddenly becomes Cafu at right back and stays at Spurs for 10 years and becomes a legend. Who knows, but I'm trying to go based on the rumours we're hearing and the kind of moves that might potentially be possible for a team like Spurs. So do let me know what you think of my transfers below. But Emerson Royal is out the door to Fulham for 15 million. And with the players we had at the club, I didn't really see space for Tanganga either. We spoke about right back already, but at centre back we've recruited a player alongside already having the likes of Romero, Dyer and Sanchez at the club. Now Tanganga was the most sellable option here for me. He was the one that had the most interest in him, and I know that he is Spurs homegrown, but he hasn't played that many games. He didn't appear much for us when we simulated that one season, and we've now sold him to Celta Vigo for 8.25 million. We mentioned looking for a new goalkeeper, and to do so we decided to offer Hugo Lloris out, and he's gone back to France, to the club that he used to play for in Nice. He was there years and years ago. He's going back now, and hopefully he can retire in peace and have a nice time out in his home country. But of course, the big one, Harry Kane. We offered him out. We probably didn't get the fee that Spurs would in real life. Obviously, this is Football Manager and we can't replicate things exactly. I don't think Tottenham would sell them to a rival like Chelsea. Maybe someone that's not an intercity rival like Manchester United looks like a potential possibility. But just to put it out there, I don't think Kane will end up at Chelsea, as good as he might be for them. But we offered him out, didn't quite get the fees that we wanted, ended up getting £85 million for him. I think in real life, Spurs would be looking at more like 100 million, but 85 million is as close as we could get in the FM world. Scored a lot of goals for us next year, and we're going to have to try and replicate those numbers in our team with someone new. But obviously it's very hard to go out there and sign someone who's a direct replacement for Kane. So I think we need to look at someone who's already good and could potentially develop into a world-class striker. But we'll get onto the Kane replacement in a second. Let's start off with goalkeeper. One player that we did look at is David Raya, who I believe's contract is expiring in real life and he's being linked with moves away from Brentford. A very talented goalkeeper, but in the FM world he signed an extension with Brentford, and I feel like I've found someone that's equally as good and could be a good fit for Spurs based on a real life situation. But I definitely think Raya here could be a good goalkeeper for Spurs, but we've gone for someone else. We've gone for Brighton's Robert Sanchez, who is a very good goalkeeper, as we know. Like David Raya, he's Spanish and he's been performing well for his side, but recently he has had competition at Brighton, with Steele recently coming through into the first team. So Sanchez could be someone that Brighton potentially sell. We saw an opportunity there in the FM world and we were able to pick him up for 30 million. I think he's going to be a good goalkeeper for us. He's got everything that we need and he's good at playing out from the back also. A modern day goalkeeper and someone that slots in and brings the age of that position down by 10 plus years now compared to Lloris. We looked at a few options to fill in that left centre-back spot. I was looking for left-footed centre-backs who were able to play with the ball well. One player that came up was Pavlovic here from Salzburg, but I decided to go in a different direction. We did look at Inter Milan's Alessandro Bastoni, who's been linked with Tottenham for a while, and they potentially might have to sell in real life, so that could be a fairly realistic deal that could happen. But in the FM world, they wanted 90 plus million for him. We weren't willing to offer that, so we didn't end up going for him, but he would be a great pickup for Spurs. Good, young and potential to get better. And also Jean-Claire Todibo, but we decided to go in a different direction to any of those players and we signed someone who has been linked with Spurs in real life, and that is Villarreal's Pau Torres, the Spanish international who we had to pay a pretty pricey £70 million fee for, but that was after a very good season for Villarreal in the FM world, and there is a lot of talent there, still plenty of years left and only just about to hit his prime. Left-footed, can play the ball around nicely, decent passing ability and technique, maybe lacking in the vision sense of things, but he does have a good defensive element to his game. He's good in the air, he's strong, and he's not the slowest in the world either. I think he'd be a great fit for Spurs. I think ideally they might prefer Bastoni, but Pau Torres here alongside Romero could be a pretty formidable centre-back partnership. I mentioned needing a creative midfield player, so we decided to go for Enzo Lafay of Lorient. He's had a great season for Lorient this year and has came out and said that he's going to leave the club so that he can get a decent fee for the side that's made him do so well, which I guess is a nice thing, but at the same time, he is saying that he's going to leave his team. But either way, a very talented player. We've ended up getting him for 16 million in the FM world here. I feel like he would cost more in real life, but he is a creative player, something that I feel Spurs lack a little bit in that midfield area. A lot of solid hard workers in Bentancur, Højbjerg and Basuma, but with Kane going, we are losing a playmaker as well as a goal scorer, so I decided to go for Enzo Lafay Lafay as someone to create chances from that midfield position. Excellent passing, vision and technique. I think he could be a great fit for Spurs. There's potentially not a player in the whole world who can replicate what Kane gives to Spurs in terms of goals and assists. So we've had to look for someone that's good but could potentially get way better and maybe not fill Kane's boots, but at least get some of the goals that he was getting for the Spurs side. Now, Youssef En-Nesyri was part of that Morocco side but did so well at the World Cup, and he's had some tedious links to that striking position for Tottenham in real life, but I've decided not to go for him. I feel like his price point is far too high for the calibre of player that he is, at least in the world of FM. We also looked at Randall Kolo Muani, who's ended up going to Arsenal here, but I didn't go for him. I'm trying to keep things realistic, and it looks like his side Frankfurt are trying to command a fee of around £100 million in real life for the French international, so I don't think he's the kind of player Spurs could go for, so I've decided not to go for him either. So I did have fairly limited options, but I've ended up landing on Jonathan David, who currently plays for Lille in real life, and as much as he is natural up front, he also seems to be natural on either flank or also as a number 10, so that could offer us a bit of versatility when it comes to him linking up with Kulusevski, Son and potentially Richarlison also, and that is an argument as well, by the way, that Richarlison could just slot into that Harry Kane role, but I don't think he is the man to do that for Spurs. I think he's a squad player and a potential attacking option, but not the main man up front. David, however, has the potential to be that for Spurs. Whether he'll come in and offer 20 goals a season straight away is another question, but in terms of potential, the Canadian certainly has it. He's got bags of ability and he'd be a great player for Spurs to potentially pick up, being linked with a move at the minute away from Lille in real life for a pretty hefty fee, but maybe not the biggest in the world, so we've ended up spending 50 million on the player. He's been great for Lille in real life recently, and he could add that star quality to the Spurs team, particularly in a few years when he begins to develop. But I do think this move is at least semi-realistic in terms of the strikers that we were looking at. So with him being bought in alongside Enzo Lafay, Pau Torres and also David Sanchez, we have completed our 4 incomings at Spurs. I would have liked more outgoings and then been able to sign one more key player, but we weren't able to do that. For now though, this will have to do, and we'll see how this side can get on as we simulate the next season. Here is the side that the game recommends would be the best now. Sanchez in goal, Porro, Adoje as 2 young fullbacks with Romero and Torres in the middle, Bentancur, Bissouma and Enzo Lafay, with the ever-experienced Heung-min Son, Kulusevski and Jonathan David up top. Maybe not the most perfect team in the world, but it feels like an improvement on what we had initially. I think there's a lot of good players in there and players that have a high ceiling also that could get better. So now let's simulate the season and see if we can do any better than that 7th place finish we got in year 1. And we have done far better than last year, picked up a few more points and finished, more importantly, in a Champions League spot in 3rd place, still a while away from Manchester City. We've closed a gap on some of the other teams, didn't do too great in the cup competitions, but we won the Friendly Cup, so there you go, we've got a trophy for Spurs in some way at least. In terms of our best performers this year, we've had Bissouma, Porro, David Lafay, Sanchez, Højbjerg and Torres, so a lot of our new players coming in and doing great for the team. Jonathan David scoring 31 goals in 46 appearances and starting to develop into the player we knew that he could be. Enzo Lafay also had a great first year in the Premier League with 7 assists and 1 goal in 32 appearances, providing that creativity from the midfield. And Pau Torres had a solid year at the back with a 7 average match rating across the course of the season. So it seems like our transfers have worked out well. And there you go, that is our realistic rebuild of Tottenham in FM23. If you did enjoy, smash the like button and let us know what you thought of the transfers and who you'd like to see rebuilt next. I've been Jake for FM Scout and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.